Hey guys, it's my turn. It is Mental Health Monday. I'm sorry I'm getting this to you on Tuesday, but it is Mental Health Monday technically. So what I wanted to talk with you guys about today is coping mechanisms. Coping mechanisms are exceptionally tricky things because they are so deeply embedded into our lives. They're strategies that we've used since birth to figure out how to deal with everyday feelings, emotions, situations, and ultimately they don't necessarily have any sort of moral judgment on them. They can be neutral. However, more often than not, coping mechanisms can turn into something that takes over our lives, that becomes the problem rather than the symptom of the problem, or becomes the problem itself rather than the solution to the problem. We all know what doctors say about good health, right? I mean, we know that you should get sunlight, exercise, go outdoors, go into nature, live in community, have community with others, share your life with others, do meaningful work every day. I think that more often than not, sometimes we encounter life situations that leave us, even if we're doing these things, feeling like we don't have the right tools or skills to be able to bear what's happened. Anything from being directly hurt or criticized by someone close to us, the loss of a family member or a loved one or a friend, not getting promoted, not winning a game, not getting into the right institution or the right schooling or the right job, or whatever it might be. We have a lot of setbacks in life, and we don't have the tools to deal with these things in a way that allows us to be totally healthy on the outside of it. When you think about your coping mechanisms, maybe just walk through this for a second. Something bad happens. Someone breaks up with you if you're in the dating scene, or someone at work clearly insults you, either behind your back or to your face. A boss criticizes your work and says it's not good enough. When these things happen, you should look at what your immediate response is and look at that, and oftentimes we have feelings of anxiety, of anger, of sadness. But the next 24 to 48 hours, what do you find yourself doing? If you get home from work, if you get home from seeing that person that insulted you or that's leaving you, what is your go-to strategy? What physical activity do you do? What do you participate in? What do you seek out when the going gets tough? For me, as you've seen in my previous videos, I've been addicted to video games. And video games were a seemingly neutral coping mechanism because they didn't hurt anybody. I went inside, I used my internet connection, I played games, I blew off steam. Those are good aspects of our society, is to find an activity where we can blow off steam, where we can release some of the pent-up emotion that we had that we couldn't release because we were in a situation that required us to be proper, or we were with a relationship partner or a friend that requires us to not express our feelings in certain ways, or maybe we never learned the right ways to express our feelings, and so the coping mechanism becomes the place where that's okay. My challenge for all of us and for myself is, how can we be more honest and in the moment with those feelings, right? I think it's so challenging when we get in these situations that are incredibly frustrating to us or incredibly hurtful to us. We want to evaluate how we feel. We want to retreat back into our minds, retreat back into our safe spaces, evaluate how I feel, use our intellect to determine what exactly the problem is, exactly how we feel, and then come with sort of a clean plan of action. But sometimes that's not always available to us. Sometimes we're in a workplace where we have to dress up every day, and that doesn't mean physically, it also means emotionally. We have to be a certain way, we have to make the right jokes and not the wrong jokes, we have to be friends with the right people. There's all sorts of social situations like that. But what is your coping mechanism? What do you do to be okay from that? With something like video games, it started as a symptom. right? There were so many things that were fine about it, and it worked just fine, and I showed up for the things that were important. But then it slowly started seeping into my other aspects of my life. In college, for example, I would spend more time trying to configure when I could play video games with the people that I had an online community with than actually hanging out in person in college, where I was having the time of my life, enjoying these amazing people around me. You see that all the time with other people's coping mechanisms, whether it's alcoholism, whether it's relationships, actually using relationships themselves as a coping mechanism. Some people use their religion or their faith as a coping mechanism, and that's a tricky one because most religions say that they have the answer to all of the different aspects of your life, and that's challenging. When your faith says it has the answer to everything, for example, I'm most familiar with evangelical Christianity, that's an important claim to evaluate what that exactly means, right? I've heard everything on Christianity, within Christianity, from, Jesus is the only answer, Jesus is the only way for everything. And when I say everything, I don't mean, for how you should live your life or what happens when you die, but, if you have anger at your work, give it to Jesus. If you stub your toe, give it to Jesus. And personally, I actually am, I might get some flack for this, but I'm not sure that's the exact way to think about it. When people have deep-seated mental health issues, I certainly believe faith is an aspect of that. I think that that's truly important, particularly if that's a really integral part of your life. However, if you're suffering from something, you need to get help. You need to get physical presence help from people who love and care about you, or people that you're paying professionally to offer you the services of somebody that can help you solve these problems. So there's all these situations, and actually religious communities are a place where there's deep shame, where there's deep ridicule for not participating in whatever the religious community asks you to be, or asks you to perform as, or asks you to turn into for the purposes of that community. So we come to this place where we say, what are the things that we're doing to be okay? What are the things that we're doing to bounce back? We kind of subjugate our feelings in the moment, and then we let them out later. And my question for you, viewer, is when you're doing whatever coping mechanisms you have, is that something that truly, genuinely helps you get out of your own head, that doesn't hurt others, in fact, that might even help you in doing that coping mechanism? Or is that coping mechanism something that could be a problem in and of itself? Like I said, in college, I would be deeply addicted to video games. I would do that at the expense of other things in my life, at the expense of doing homework, at the expense of having magical, amazing moments with friends. I would be in my room, and I wouldn't be too interested in the things that were happening out and about in Philadelphia. So I don't know what it is for you. Maybe you're somebody that when the going gets tough, you have a few drinks. And in North Dakota, honestly, I see that all the time. I mean, I'm talking to a lot of you guys that are watching this, a lot of my male friends. They have 1 to 3 beers every night. And frankly, it's probably fine, but at the same time, I'm worried. I'm scared for you that that's gonna slip into something more sinister. Just like my video game or coping mechanism, and then from there addiction occurred. That's how it happened. In order to alleviate your own suffering, I think the first question to ask is, what do I do? What is my natural fight or flight response to alleviate my suffering? Going along with older videos that I've had, I just want to remind everyone that Amazon.com, or libraries everywhere, you can find books that speak to every single one of these coping mechanisms. You can find books that relate to every single large emotion that we have. Anger, sadness, anxiety, and fear. Those are 3 very, very large negative emotions. And anger is not necessarily negative, but oftentimes can be. And you can find books on dealing with those things. And I mentioned the author Harriet Lerner. She addresses actually all 3 of those in different books that she has. So that's my challenge to you, is identify what is your natural response, what is your coping mechanism to difficult things in your life. And then from here, evaluate, is that a coping mechanism that's taking me to where I want to be? And I wish someone would have told me this throughout my 25 years of being a video game addict. And I'm not trying to slam my parents right now. They're so loving and they really didn't want me to play video games ever, but they never were able to communicate why I shouldn't play video games. It was just, you're doing too much. You're doing that too much. It's gonna turn your brain into mush. Okay, I clearly know it wasn't gonna do that, but like, it's funny, I actually remember that's the exact terminology they used, turn your brain into mush, and my brain didn't turn into mush at all. It never really led me to the answer of the reason why you don't continuously play video games is that the dopamine systems of video games are actually wired to make you want to play more. They're wired to make you lose track of time, to get in that flow state. And ultimately, when you're done playing them, you haven't achieved really anything. So video games where you're with 6 close friends and you guys are playing FIFA soccer or Mario Kart or whatever, or Smash Brothers, that stuff's awesome, right? But Jordan playing World of Warcraft for 8 hours by himself in an office, that's a little less awesome. And I was making that choice, I was aware of the choice I was making, but it was something to where I didn't have the ability to not make that choice. So maybe that's the third kind of line here with the coping mechanism question is, what is your natural response to what you do in any sort of high emotion state? 2, is that natural response helping you be who you want to be? Is there any risk of it becoming a problem versus just a coping mechanism? And then the final aspect there, are you able to not choose that coping mechanism? If we took away your natural response to being okay, where would you be then? How would you be then? And that's a hard question, right? Where would Jordan be without video games? You know, that's tough. It's tough to know. And that's the key, I think, right? Something I wish I would have been asked in premarital counseling is just, how do you spend your day? What does your day look like? How do you deal with something going very wrong in your life? What are those 2 questions right there would have immediately brought out video games and video games. And I wouldn't have even initially, I would have resisted video games being the coping mechanism, but the more I would have thought about it, video games was the catch-all for me. Now, I've built in things into my life that have natural dopamine endorphin producers. I just want to point out to my ex-wife again, we had this argument, I told her I didn't feel any endorphins from exercise. That's totally a lie. I absolutely feel endorphins from all the swing dancing and from exercising in the mornings. So you're right, I'm wrong. Just want to throw that out there, ex-wife. But long story short, let's evaluate these things and let's go on a journey together. Maybe we need to read a book about alcoholism or about coping with alcohol. Maybe we need to read a book about workaholism. Maybe we need to read a book about codependency. Together, try to figure out how we can have other alternatives to help us feel better about this life that we get to live together. So it's my turn, Mental Health Monday. I'm off to Paris tomorrow to visit best friend Josh Veit, and I'm so very excited. Like I said in my last video, a lot of things moving, a lot of things changing for me, and stuff's getting better every single day. So love you guys. It's my turn. Peace out.